Welcome to the Teacher's Toolkit for Literacy, the free podcast for motivated teachers and school leaders who want to inspire their students and school community in literacy learning. Make sure you subscribe to the show on your favourite podcast player, and for more amazing literacy resources, check out the show notes provided with every episode.
Hi, I'm Sharon, and I'm the host of a Teacher's Toolkit for Literacy. In every Toolkit episode, we bring you specific resources, tools, strategies, tips, techniques to help you in your job as a teacher of literacy. Firstly, we acknowledge and pay our respects to the Kaurna people, the traditional custodians whose ancestral lands we gather on. We acknowledge the deep feelings of attachment and relationship of the Kaurna people to country, and we respect and value their past, present, and ongoing connection to the land and cultural beliefs. Hello, everybody.
Welcome, everyone, to this podcast, the first in our second series of podcasts. In every Toolkit episode, we bring you specific resources, tools, strategies, tips, techniques to help you in your job as a teacher of literacy. And there's been an incredible over 38,000 downloads of our podcast of the Teacher's Toolkit for Literacy, which is fabulous. Well done, everyone, for downloading.
More than fabulous. We are so encouraged and feel so supported by knowing that we've got a growing audience, and we love hearing back from people about how much we are becoming part of their professional lives around their teaching. So thank you, everybody.
Thank you. And over 1,500 members of our Teachers Toolkit Facebook group, which has really grown, which is fantastic. Welcome newcomers to our podcast. We love hearing news from you in various ways through our Facebook group or just dropping us an email. We just love hearing about how you're going in your classroom and how things are affecting you and how we're helping you, whether it's the podcast or it could be teachific resources, it could be any way that you're being helped and encouraged in your job as a professional. That's fantastic. The purpose of our podcasts, it's about using the fullness of the Australian curriculum. We believe great teaching can never be packaged into a program, and that quality children's literature is at the heart of our teaching, and it is central to our students' learning. We're really excited to tell you about what we've been doing over the past months, actually.
Yes.
Yeah.
So over what was the Australian summer holidays, school holidays, we did take a little bit of a pause from the podcast. So between episode 59 and this one, in real time, we had a little bit of a break to focus on resource development.
We've been in a time warp, actually, because the last podcast and this one are sort of not that far apart when you actually go and listen to podcasts. But anyway.
No, in podcast world, they're just however long apart for you. But in between time, yes, we've been doing a lot of work on, during the year, we're pretty busy face-to-face with schools, teachers, leaders, and the resource creation that we love to bring to people. So really what we're now referring to, so through Teachific, we're really referring to that as a site that's really providing some essential planning tools and being really a planning toolkit for teachers.
So when you go to the Teachific site and you go up the top to click on resources, you can do it that way, or you can just click on that middle window and there'll be a drop down of categories. And we've just created all these new categories, and they're called R&W workshop units, which means reading and writing workshop units, and they go by year level. So you can do foundation right through to year 6, and then when you go into that, then you've got these subcategories of all these units in there. And the first one,
well, we've got the categories. We haven't got all the units in there yet, but that's our work, continuing work over the year.
Yeah.
So we feel pretty excited about what we were able to get done.
Now, our chatty rambles today, Sharon, I'd love to talk about the current actions of our cats. Because there's a surprising new development. We were sitting in the backyard with some friends the other day, or the other evening, And we looked into the laundry window, and right at the top of our very tall laundry cupboard was sitting our very old,
14-year-old,
but very
cat
agile
life.
cat. Now, it had never been up there before. It didn't even know how it got up there, but
We didn't even know it could get up there.
so we were kind of all distracted looking at the position of this cat. Anyway, we figured out that some weeks before that, our son's friend had brought a very large dog along, a Doberman along, and our cats had climbed up to these very high positions to get away from that dog. So that's why they discovered this new position. But anyway, very surprising. And, we thought cats were going to get very sedentary in their old age, but this one...
I know, and I think it's giving us great hope, isn't it, Phil?
Yes.
That the older, with ageing, maybe we will also stay agile and
we'll be able to climb onto the top of cupboards. I mean, that's what the aim would be. No. So,
well, I think it's also hilarious that one of our cats, there's only one that can get up there. The weightier one doesn't seem to be able to get enough lift to get up there. But they've actually, Mia has made herself a bed in the Christmas wreath that's up on top of the cupboard, wrapped in plastic. And that's how we know she's even up there, because you hear the rustling of this plastic as she settles herself into the middle of this huge Christmas wreath and stays up there for hours.
Anyway, we'll keep our audience updated on our cats' new developments and where they're positioning themselves in the world.
Yeah. I know, and I think the cats are becoming a bit part of everybody's lives. We've had a cat or two appear in some of our webinars as well as we're recording.
They come in.
Yes, we have a cat flap in the studio, so they've got ready access to many parts of the house. Anyway, there's a little part of our insight into our pet lives.
Yeah.
And of course we get great joy from pets. Yeah.
Now, Sharon, a quick wrap up of what you've been doing in schools.
Oh, in
recently.
This past week. Well, even if I just talk about this past week, this last week in schools, I have had the enormous privilege and pleasure of working with two schools in particular. One being Mount Scopus, which is a Melbourne-based school, Mount Scopus College, and I'd actually started working with them in 2020, just before we went into lockdown, COVID lockdown. So it was just an absolute joy to be back there face to face with people and the remarkable jobs they've been doing over all of those lockdowns that Melbourne experienced. But we had 3 days working with the teachers, with the prep, Year 1 and Year 2 teachers at Mount Scopus. And Mount Scopus has got this fabulous model for professional learning that has been a really strong way for us all to be able to do the learning in a very personalised way. So I was able to, before I went to work with the school, each of the teams, the prep, the 1, the 2 team, all sent the things that they wanted to focus on so we had a day for each year level together. So I was able to spend the mornings with all the teachers in their classrooms.
So that would be one teacher at a time for a lesson.
Yes.
That's how you did it?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So
mostly.
9 o'clock or whatever, you start with one teacher, then 50 minutes later it's the next teacher.
And this is the wonderful thing about this. That just wasn't random and haphazard. They'd scheduled who I could be with at what time, because they'd actually adjusted their timetable to make allowances for me to be able to come and give them, to join in with those lessons and be able to form our discussions in the afternoon when all of us were together. So all the teachers and I were together talk about in the afternoon, for 2 lessons in the afternoon.
To talk about all the things that happen in those individual classrooms.
Yes.
So in the individual classroom, the teacher was teaching the lesson and you were then just sort of helping out with what was going on?
Well, yes, being able to have, it's always powerful to have other eyes. on what's happening in a classroom, to notice things. So, and to give feedback about the noticings that you have, because this is what we do as teachers with our own students. So it's actually the same kind of model that we talk about, in that when students are practicing independently, whether it's reading or writing, that actually what we're then doing is roving the room and noticing and helping.
It's one of our timeless T's, folks. Transformative tracking, so that we
Yes.
It's actually changes things by tracking in this way, doesn't it?
Yes. Yep. Good point, Phil. And it's exactly what it is. So
you're doing that at a teacher level.
At a teacher level,
where you're transforming what they're doing it with you.
Yes.
Transforming what they're doing through this tracking, this way of.
Yeah, and
it's not an observation where you're catching up on people.
No, I'm not the line manager.
No.
I'm there as a critical friend.
Yep.
So, and a lot of work goes on behind the scenes to make all of these things work.
Right.
So I really want to acknowledge, that the leadership of the school works really hard at putting this together and, creating the opportunity for it to work.
It's a whole team effort. The whole school's involved in it.
Yes.
The leadership, the teachers, and literacy leaders within the school.
That's right.
Yeah.
And so, and it's also, before I came to work with them, that each of those teams let me know what their questions, what their areas of focus were. So it meant that I wasn't just going in blind. I was going in with what was on their minds about what they were wanting to have discussions about, because it was all about how can we keep growing and improving. And in fact, as an entire Prep 1-2 team, they also determined what was the success criteria of this work that we're going to do together, because it's not just this one visit to the school. We've got planned visits across the year and some Zoom catch-ups, but it's already been established this work will be successful if we see this and if we do this. So isn't that powerful? So absolutely love that everybody's got ownership in this. So none of this is being done to us. It is us, it's everybody in these teams, in these year levels, being able to talk about how growth can look for them, how learning can look for them and what they're looking to improve on. So I just find it was an entirely engaging, won't say it wasn't exhausting, but I want to say it was rejuvenatingly exhausting. There's a lot of energy in this. It's a lot of,
and I loved it. I loved it when you came home and you talked about, you actually did something in the classroom, and then another teacher got excited with.
The teacher in that classroom.
Sorry, the teacher in that classroom got excited with what you were. You were just showing another way of doing something.
Yes, because actually it was in a conferring situation. So because the teacher was conferring with a child, and we had one child just seemed to be a bit at a loose end here at the moment, was having a bit of trouble focusing. So we just said, would you like to come and have a conference with me? So in that opportunity to confer with that child, it also gave the teacher an opportunity to just listen in to that as well. And that became part of the conversation that we had together as a team in the afternoon, because it was one of their areas that they wanted to talk about, was how do we go deeper with our conferring. So, of course, that gave me an absolute in when I saw that there was this opportunity to confer with a student, and because I knew that was something that they were wanting to think a little bit more about, it let me jump in there because I was informed.
So that was a great model in that school for this week of how you would go about, or how a school could get their professional learning together.
It's part of the model.
Part of the model,
yes.
Yeah.
But I suppose just in thinking about, what I've been doing this week, so that was 3 days. So each year level had a day with me. And then we had a combined one hour
that's the other thing.
After school session where we took a focus for everybody.
So all the P1, 2 teachers all came to this after school session.
Yes, and support teachers.
And that was in a particular focus area, was it?
Yeah. So all of this building on each other, and we keep communicating through email and providing professional readings and matching, other resources or scope and sequence documents or whatever it is, to keep all of that moving along. Like it's such big and engaging work for everybody. I just feel like it's because it's so focused. There's just such a depth to that learning for all of us. So
just a question about the after school workshop. How did the school or you determine what that was the topic was going to be? What was
we'd already, because they'd determined what were the areas that they were wanting to work on and what would be like the success criteria for this work together. We chose a topic that everybody had as something that they were really wanting to delve into more deeply.
Which is what would happen with your class too. When you're teaching as a class, there would be certain things that, we identify that they all need these high frequency words, so we'll do it all together as a whole class. Yep.
Oh, so there's the topic. Yes. So yes, it was something, it was to do with, some people said, look, we're working with sight words, but we're not necessarily seeing the transfer that we want. So we opened that up into actually talking about, it's not just about sight words. Look, I'm going to be doing a whole workshop here, Phil, but let me sum up by saying that it was really about choosing something that everybody already had, each of the teams had as a focus point. So we said, okay, now let's do that collectively as a group, and that means then we can get, so we really talked about word learning, and strategies for that, so that meant that there could be some consistency across the year levels of really chasing down the high-frequency word learning for readers and writers at each year level.
That's right, because I was in my intro, I didn't talk about how we are really on about using our skills in our reading and our writing, and that's a really critical part of what we need to do in our classrooms, really.
And I suppose, do you know what, that's probably one of the most common things I hear teachers say, where that we're all working so hard to teach our students, to open the doors, to bring them into the learning. But the thing that I hear most often from teachers is saying, I'm teaching this and I'm disappointed when I don't see transfer.
Yeah.
And I'm not so, and that was something, that's something that came up, and it comes up everywhere. How do we see the transfer? And how do we see it? How do we get the transfer? Because when we're teaching our students anything, this is why with learning intentions, I always preface them, good readers or good writers. Because let's say it's high frequency words, good readers recognize words quickly that we see often in our reading. That's what makes them high frequency. And because they make up 50% of what we're reading, we want to be able to recognize them quickly, because that develops reading fluency.
But we also want to be able to write them.
So good writers know how to spell the words we use a lot in our writing quickly and with fluency. You know, that we're these words, we're thinking about them. I'm sorry, everyone. I am on a ramble here. You know, we're thinking about these as words that are high frequency because we see them a lot in our reading and we use them a lot in our writing. Mm-hmm. And so we want to always make connections with whatever we're doing with our students, how we use them, and why it's important to know these things for us as readers and writers. So therefore we preface it with good readers do this to help them do what? Good writers do this to help them do what?
And there's a great chart that you can make in your classroom too.
Yeah, any mini lesson that's how we go. Good readers do what to help them do what?
Yep.
Good writers do to help them do.
Yep.
So, yeah.
Now, that was one school you were working with this week. The other school was a different way of approaching it.
Well, it's just because they're in different places.
Yeah.
And
Adelaide,
the way we
Adelaide
set up,
and
this is so Mount Barker South. Yesterday, I had the wonderful. We had a day together, pupil-free day. We had already had a pupil-free day earlier, so in fact before school started at the beginning of this year. But because of COVID restrictions, that meant that we couldn't be face-to-face and it was Zoom. But yesterday, we were able to be face-to-face. And actually, that's the first time this school year that we've been able to be face-to-face. So we've had a number of Zoom meetings together, and this is a school where I'm actually working with them fortnightly on site. So yesterday, pupil-free day, we dedicated the day to planning for our English block, and to, at the beginning of the year, to build really strong reading communities through reading workshop, and really strong writing communities through a writing workshop, and developing our word work to support those reading and writing workshops, or to support readers and writers. So we had a day of that work yesterday, where we did lots of modelling and demonstrations of doing some of that planning together, and setting up lots of people had already set up classroom libraries.
Yep. But
we dedicated a little bit of time of checking off the checklist of establishing a classroom library that we have on Teachific, of really looking at how's our library set up, how are we using it, what's in the collection, what are we missing. Rick said, I had it in too small a space. I just need to spread that out more so it's more accessible to my students. So we had this focus on thinking about and actually actioning some of those things for our classroom libraries, and then an afternoon of doing the planning. So forward planning now. So for the next week, reading workshop, all our strong mini lessons and independent practice opportunities, and how we're building this culture and community of readers and of writers through the strong planning that we're doing. Now, I'm back again there on today's Saturday as we record. I'm back again there on Monday. And that school, we've got in those days when I'm there, because I'm there fortnightly, then we meet with, at the moment we're in a cycle of meeting with teachers who I haven't yet had a chance to meet with. So that will have meant every teacher will have had a one-on-one with me. Mm-hmm. And that means they get to ask all those things so it's personalised learning.
Yep.
What are their questions? And what's more, they send me those questions before the session.
Oh.
So that I know exactly what we're in to talk about. So it's like the goal is set. of what we're going to cover, and we want to know that we've addressed that, so they've got their next steps to move on with. Once we're through this cycle, and plus always meeting with leadership in there, so the literacy facilitator and the principal, so that we've got where are we, what are we doing, what's next, what can the literacy facilitator handle and do in the week that I'm not there.
Yep.
Because it's not actually all about me. It's about all of those things continuing, so we know what the focus is. We know, what we're continuing to drive down, what teachers might need, and then we're going to move into a cycle of each time I'm there, I'm going to meet with the team member. So they have a literacy action team made up of a teacher from each of the reception 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 5, 6, so that I can meet in with them. They're kind of representing the team and being the one to bring questions, bring wonderings, ponderings, and then they share that back to the team, because they also have a really strong plan of weekly joint planning. So they're always planning with somebody during the week. So, it's so collaborative. It's such a strong model again. And it's not because other schools aren't doing this. I'm just highlighting some of the things they're doing. And Mount Scopus, they're doing a whole lot of, those things that I haven't talked about either. Anyway, that's a...
Well, that's big work, Sharon. I think, that's really, to me, answered key question number 1, really.
And what was key question number 1?
What have we been doing in schools this week?
Yes, okay. Oh, I'm sorry, that was just a... But I think people will probably also be interested in knowing ways that people are working to really drive.
I'm sure people listening will make a connection with anything that you've been talking about and saying, well, that's something I could try out in my school in this other way, And that's what we hope for in these podcasts.
Yes,
that through us mentioning these things, there might be some connection that you, as a podcast listener, will pick up on.
Yes.
So, yep. Now, Sharon, our topic for today, principles for working with struggling readers and writers. Where did that come from?
All right. The topic itself has come from, so we're actually wanting to point people in the direction of a really tremendous professional resource. And that is the Foundation for Literacy and Learning.
FFLL is the abbreviation. And it's very hard to say though. What do you say, FFLL or FFLL?
I don't know. Or the Foundation for Literacy and Learning.
That might be the way to say it, I think. Yeah.
Yes. We really want to bring everyone's attention to this, because this is an amazing group of literacy educators and researchers.
Highly respected, highly experienced, classroom experience in all of them.
Yes, and research experience.
Yep.
Yes.
Yep.
So the Foundation for Literacy and Learning is a site, so they're set up as a site that brings a whole lot of professional readings to us for free. So if we go into the resources section.
Yeah, just before you go on, Sharon,
yes,
I'll correct you. It's the Foundation for Learning and Literacy.
Oh, do you know I say literacy and learning all the time?
Okay. So there's
Thank you for checking on that.
Yeah.
For learning and literacy, which maybe it's because, that was my postgraduate study, was about literacy and learning. But then again, maybe it was learning and literacy, because learning, that's what this is all about. It's about pedagogy. It's about how we learn.
Yeah.
It's about, and that's what we talk about a lot.
That the learning is central to it.
Yes, yes. And that the learning, we talk workshop model. That's a learning pedagogy
Mm.
because it's bringing together concepts and ideas around high impact learning.
Yeah. But one of the categories within the website is research and practice. Is that the one, do you think?
Yes, it is.
Yeah.
Yes.
And within that, you've got headings like speaking and listening, reading, writing, phonics, spelling, literacy, and other curriculum areas.
Fact sheets.
Fact sheets, yeah.
And what's the top one?
Fact sheets at the top,
Right.
and evidence for parents down the bottom.
Right.
Yeah.
So within each of these categories are a whole lot of readings.
Right.
And more and more I am pointing people in the direction of these, because if you're someone looking for, so this came up yesterday in a school, someone said, oh, we've been told blah, blah, blah. And I said, who said, where did that come from? And they go, oh, someone just said, I don't know where it comes from. I think as teachers, we really need to have sources that we can go to, that we can trust and really feel like we're getting good, solid information. So all of the ones that are presented here this is a curated collection. This is really, so those that the foundation is really being clear about the ones that they are putting here for people to inform us, with reliable and good sources of information and balanced views around every area of literacy here. So I chose an article from the Foundation for Learning and Literacy, and it actually falls in, I think, under reading and under writing, most likely.
Mm-hmm.
And it's this one that we've called the podcast today, Principles for Working with Struggling Readers and Writers. And we want to bring this to you today because it's a question we're asked over and over again about how do we support those who are struggling as readers and writers. And often we are pointed then, when, maybe in our schools or, we're looking for information about that, and where that often ends us, where we often end up with that is maybe there is an intervention program, or maybe there's an intervention we can bring to them, and sometimes it's packaged.
So this is designed to they're hoping it will fix their problem.
Yes,
yeah.
yes. And sometimes those packages aren't necessarily even matching the needs of that child.
Mm.
We can sometimes group our struggling readers and writers just into a struggling reader and writer category,
Mm-hmm.
without thinking. I'm not saying we do this as teachers, but sometimes in our, in trying to deal with all of this, people go, well, if they're struggling, then let's give them this.
Mm.
And so I want to just go through this article, and this, I think, is a good article to bring to staff meetings or to PLCs or to leadership, to be thinking about what are we doing on any day in our school that is going to support our struggling readers and writers. But these can also be good tips for us to adjust our teaching for individual students who are experiencing some difficulty with reading and writing. So I like that idea of that what we're doing, so what they're accessing, how can we adjust what we're doing for them? And this article, so for all those secondaries that have joined us along the way, secondary teachers, this is for teachers across primary and secondary and across all areas. So it's not just literacy defined or literacy exclusive, because all teachers are teachers of literacy. So in our secondary settings, these are some things that we can think about. how we might be able to adjust by this, by thinking of some of these things. So I'm not going to talk at length about each of them, but just to say just a little bit about them. But I don't even know how many are here, but here we go. And I think they're not even, I don't know that there's really anything here that anyone's going to go, oh, I'd never thought of that before. I'm hoping that these are the kinds of things where you go, oh my goodness, yes, they need this too. This is, and they need it just as much as our thriving. So sometimes I call the struggling readers and writers they're striving to be.
Not so much struggling, it's striving. It's a more positive way of looking at it. Yeah.
Yes.
Yep.
And I feel that that's where we can lead with that too, to say what are they striving to achieve.
Yep.
And our thrivers, they're thriving in these things, but we can also help them to thrive in more expanded ways. But striving, what are we striving towards?
Mm-hmm.
So, and then people often ask me, well, what do you call those who are not the strivers and the thrivers? And I said, well, they the middlers. They sort of the ones in. But I actually think we are all learners should be striving. We've all got things to strive towards. That's what goals are about. So let's go through some of these things. And so this one, I suppose a lot of this is aligned to what we believe about students and learning. And so therefore, if we believe in this, I think this first one, this drives how we teach anyway. But number one, learn what students can do and build on those strengths. So that's such a fundamental piece to our learning pedagogy, pointing to you, Phil, that where are they?
Transformative tracking.
Yes.
Yep.
And transformative teaching.
Yep.
And this actually is an example of even what we've been doing with the teachers. What are they doing? And let's build on that. Let's not go, okay, wipe all of that. Let's start from scratch. It's what's working, what are we doing, where can we build on it, and what can we build on?
Well, Diane Snowball, who does wonderful webinars for us, talked about in spelling, looking at a piece of writing and finding what spelling the children are successful at first.
Yes.
That's the first thing you do.
And
you're not looking for the errors, you're looking for all the spelling they can do.
Yes.
Yep.
And even down, we've been talking this all week, even down to a word, what can they do in a word already? What letters have they got? Where's the troublesome spot? So build on what they know. And so therefore we are talking about what do they know? Let's work from there. Isn't it much easier when we can work from what they know and build on that? And so where might be, so they know this, but this is the misconception. But we know, our strivers need to know. There's a lot of things they know.
Yep. And
so
start from
to
that.
build on it. And so this then is a difference model rather than a deficit model.
That's good. I like that.
Isn't it? So rather than deficit, this is difference. So we focus on what they know rather than on what they don't know.
Yep. And it must make the child feel a lot better about their learning anyway. Because
makes any of us feel better.
Even adults.
Yeah. Any learner.
Yep.
So, and in that, then we are having high expectations.
Yep.
Because we keep building rather than going, okay, you haven't got that. So right now we've got to go back to scratch, start from here because you don't know this bit. We must always find out what they know and absolutely acknowledge
Build.
and work from there.
Right.
That's what all of us want.
Next one.
So, and this article, free to everybody, so, wonderful one to go into and, as I said, discuss, talk.
Use it as staff meeting.
Yes, promote high levels of student engagement. So number 2, promote high levels of student engagement, because that increasing engagement means higher success.
Yeah.
It just, if I'm engaged, I know I'm going to be trying it. I'm striving with it. I'm learning to thrive with it.
Which builds in, I think, in our Timeless Teas time, where they've got time to get engaged with what they're doing, and they're together as well.
Yeah.
So those two.
Actually, can I just talk about that together one? Because that's the thing. If we want engagement, we actually need to physically bring our students together. At times. My mini lessons, I always want everyone right there with me, because if they're not there physically with me, if I'm the child sitting at the back, how can I fully engage in this? How can I fully engage with those students if they're back there and I don't know what they've got their eyes on or what they've got there? But bringing them together, I do this primary, I do this secondary. Bring everybody in. Let everybody engage together. And as that community, everybody's included. I can be strategic about who I put where. Some I need close to me.
Can I just bring up that funny incident in that film that we watched where the whole class was in rows and they were sitting in order of, being the best student, the second best student, the third best student.
Oh, yes.
Remember that?
This is in Belfast.
In that film, Belfast.
Yes, yes.
And there was a very special spot right up the front for the very best learner.
Yeah.
And that was the seat of learning or something.
Yes, or was it the seat of excellence?
Whereas in our classrooms, we're trying to have a seat of learning for every child, and they can be sitting wherever they prefer to sit. Yep.
Yes, but that mini lesson, we want them close.
Yep. Yep.
We want them in there so that when they move off for that independent reading or that independent writing, they can fully engage back there on their own. They can fully engage with independence, knowing that I'm in the room or teachers are in the room, to rove and to be there as they are needed.
Yeah.
So promote high levels
engagement
of student engagement. And we have to work. We have to work at that. We've got to be intentional about that, about getting, it isn't just a child's job to be engaged because we're doing our whiz-bang lesson.
No.
We have to promote it. We have to expect it. We have to enable it.
And the teaching continues in their independent practice time. Not only are you being really engaging in their mini lesson, but, you're really teaching within that practice time as well. Yeah.
And that's the share or reflection is also another way to promote high student engagement.
Yep.
Because we're reflecting on our learning, on our own learning, how successful we were at that. So these are all very intentional things that we do.
Yep. And also I might add that work, because we've been doing those in our classrooms.
Yes, actually, very good point, Phil. Otherwise it does just sound like I'm saying, you must do it. But this is years of practice.
Decades of practice
have taught us how effective it is for strivers and thrivers.
And we wouldn't be doing them or advocating them if they didn't work for us.
Yes.
And you got to, they just work. So,
Yes, we're not. Yes, that's a good point. We're not just sitting here preaching about this.
No,
we have walked this talk.
Yep. With many classrooms over.
Yeah, I know. Don't go the number. Well,
I was going to say in different countries actually.
Oh, yes. But we didn't start off, we were asking a lot of questions of ourselves as teachers.
Oh, yeah.
To begin with, how can we? like this would have to be the question I asked in my first year of teaching. How do I support those who I don't feel? But I took responsibility for that. For those who didn't seem to be getting, who were struggling or striving, I didn't think, okay, they've got the problem, someone else is going to have to fix that. I took it fairly and squarely on my own shoulders to say, wow, what do I need to do intentionally in the classroom to bring them along and to not for them to know that I'm here to take them from where they are and build on that day upon day. All right. Maybe I won't talk so much about the rest. Maybe I'll just...
Well, engagement is a really important one, I think,
Yes, yeah.
But
So number 3...
Let's fly through the rest.
Yes. Actually, they're not numbered in the article, but I'm just doing that so that
right.
we can... we know that they're the titles rather than just one big long blur of things that I'm saying. So number 3, provide predictability and routine.
Oh, so important.
Yes.
And that workshop model structure provides that. No, they know there's going to be a mini lesson. They know there's going to be independent practice.
Yes.
They know there's going to be share, and that's that routine every day.
Yes.
I mean,
and so they know every day they get the opportunity to see their teacher model something.
Yeah. The reader and writer actions.
Yes. Yep. To practice that with the teacher,
yep.
to do it for themselves and to reflect on how well they did it and how that worked, to know that that happens every day, and you know how important that predictability and routine is for students who are striving. If we don't have routine, and if every day is so much different from the other day, it's so hard for them to know where their entry points are, to how does this connect to what I'm learning, like what is it I'm learning.
They always know there's going to be shared reading or a read aloud or both. They know these things. They know those things. They know their teacher's going to confer, going to have roving.
But more importantly, they know how they engage with the learning every day.
Yeah.
They know how they engage.
That's really important.
That's the point, is that they know I am here this minute, I'm going to see something a good reader or writer does. So, if I'm tuning in with that, then I'll know that's the very thing to be doing in my...
Bit of gold there, Sharon.
Thank you, Phil. I always like that. Thank you, Phil. Number 4, invite students to make choices. And our strivers... they must have the opportunity to make choices as much as our students who are thriving. They should never be exempt from or excluded from choice if we're saying, otherwise we're just saying, oh, well, you can't make the choice. Making choices is living a reader's and writer's life.
Yep. Actually choosing what they're going to read and choosing what they're going to write are absolutely critical.
Yes. There is nothing about living a writer's or a reader's life that says, oh, well, you can only have, you go to the library and they go, oh, you can only borrow that one, or that one, or from this section. We are, this is probably the thing that we're going to keep, it's in this season of podcasts, we're going to be talking a lot about living a reader's and writer's life. And for us to always come back to this idea of how are our students, how are we helping them to live every day a reader's life and a writer's life? And our striving readers and writers, how are they living an authentic reader's and writer's life, building on where they are and giving them choices?
Yep, right.
This is tricky when you don't number. I'm up to number 5. Provide opportunity to talk with peers about reading and writing. Now,
thinkers talking.
Yeah. And if you're a Every Child Every Day advocate, Richard Allington and Rachel Gabriel, there it is. They say every child every day should have opportunities to talk with peers about reading and writing.
They do.
So here it is, and the research demonstrates that improves comprehension and engagement with texts. So do our strivers need that? Absolutely, because it improves comprehension and engagement. Number 6, increase the number of high-quality texts which are exemplary for their genre that students encounter.
Tantalising texts.
Tantalising. So high-quality texts that are exemplary for their genre. So students need, our strivers need, high-quality, exemplary texts. Everybody needs those.
Every day.
Every day. You know, we can only write as well as the literature we've been surrounded by and that we've heard and that we've read for ourselves. So everybody needs, and I can absolutely attest to that, to some of, I can go back to 1995 when parents wrote a letter to me about their child who had been, so this is year 5, their child had been really classified as a real at-risk writer, and the child had zero engagement for writing basically. And that year it was about elevating the texts that they heard and engaged with and learnt to be really listening and reading like a writer. And the writing that child did that year prompted the parents to write this letter to say, we never knew that our child had such a deep well of ideas within them to communicate to others. So,
but supported by that excellent literature.
Yes.
Excellent models of the English language.
Yeah.
We need our children to see.
Yes.
Yep.
Number 7, read aloud. Oh, we are so, you can't, every day children need those read alouds, and that's linked, of course, to what we've just said about exemplary models.
Yep.
Number 8, ensure that students engage in successful reading practice. So Allington and Gabriel talk about every child every day chooses something to read with accuracy and understanding. It's our job to help them learn and be shown and modelled what accurate reading looks like and sounds like, and how we get there, all the strategies that we use to get to that accurate reading and understanding, and that we are doing that every day. Otherwise, it's lost opportunities. And when we say, okay, I've got children who just sit there, they're not actually reading during that reading time, it's our job. It's our job then to ensure that they are engaging in successful reading practice. That's what our mini lessons are there for.
Well, they've all got a strategy that they're using, and that doesn't matter what level of text they're reading.
No.
They're using that same strategy, whether you're doing it whatever text. Yeah.
Yes, because the text is differentiating it for them.
And that's where your differentiation comes,
yes,
through the text.
Yes.
Not through designing activities.
I don't know what number I'm up to anymore, but the next one is teach students to use effective strategies.
Yep.
So that builds on what we've just been saying. Next one, love this, and Misty Agnew talks a lot about this, scaffold learners into text beyond their independent reading ability. So scaffolding them into those texts we do through Read Aloud, through having rich classroom libraries so that they are moving into texts. They feel they've got entry points into those texts in lots of different ways because we've talked about or introduced them to those genres. Fiction, non-fiction, fantasy, biographies, autobiographies, whatever. But we teach up. We don't teach down, but we really support them, scaffold them into more into text beyond their reading ability. That's where we're pushing them. That's where we're driving them.
That's the challenge, isn't it? To really move them towards something rather than just staying at the
constraining them.
them.
Yeah.
Yep.
Next one, like I said, forgotten the number, don't know where I'm up to. Increase the time students spend writing about things that are personally meaningful. So our striving writers actually need to write more.
Mm-hmm.
It's because they are striving that we need to up how much they're writing. Because most of them won't, will resist, avoid writing. So if we are going to do things like invite them to talk about their writing before they write, so what is it that they're going to write about, and to give them choice about that, to know that the writing that they're going to do is going to be can be read by themselves and others. Also, what's the purpose?
Also, they can be very excited about the writing when they see a model that they want to then do.
Yes,
similar.
If there's been an exemplary text they've seen where they go, oh, that's the kind of writing I'd like to do. So there's lots of, this article gives, bits and pieces around all of these things, but that this time spent writing should also just be not lots of one-off things, but things that go through a process.
Yeah.
So that I've talked about it, or I've thought about what do I want to write about, that I'm going to write that I'm going to revise it and make it more interesting and craft it in more interesting ways and be concerned about punctuation and edit it and proofread it and publish it.
Which we call the writing process, and that needs to be modelled by the teacher as well, doesn't it?
Yes, so all of these elements we model along the way. Yeah. So writing holds so much more meaning. Would we say a reception child or a first year at school child is a struggling or striving writer already? Well, they are if we say they have to copy these words down and that's their writing. Like if we're not opening up the doors to say you have to have a go at writing, write the best that you can. And when I see receptions, with a 4 or an 8-page book and they are writing, here's an example from the other day, birthday presents.
Yep.
And they're making a book and on each page is a picture of something they would like for their birthday. And then we start seeing some labels appear and all of those things. We want to make writing purposeful. These preps were writing for over an hour because they said, please don't make us stop. Please don't. So spend more time writing and about meaningful things. And the last one, provide extra support to help students perform well in front of the class. So they're part of this community, this class, this group
includes
that we're in.
Them.
We are in there, so supporting them. They need to be sharing. Support them to share. Support them to, and absolutely acknowledge it. Choose them to be the ones to share sometimes. Let them participate fully in the life of the classroom because they have. Build on what they're doing, making it meaningful, and let them fully participate in all of those ways and scaffold ways for them to do that.
And can I just say that all children have a right to be in their classroom?
Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, that was a very serious face there, Phil.
Deep and meaningful.
Well, they absolutely do. Absolutely do. And we want them fully participating.
Yep.
We want every child fully participating wherever they are in their learning.
Yeah.
That is their right.
And as a class that is together. Yep.
Yes.
Right. Well, I think we'll wrap up there, Sharon.
I know. We've
so that's a really good article, isn't it?
Yes. Yes. So it's called principles for working with struggling readers and writers, advice for teachers across primary and secondary schools.
Fantastic.
So really recommend that as good prompts for thinking about, like we can really just even use that article as a bit of a self-check on what we're doing in classrooms or in secondary schools, in faculties or across year levels or across whole schools.
Yeah.
What can we...
And as practicing teachers, we can vouch for all of those actually
Yes.
working in our classrooms, yours and mine,
Yeah.
Sharon, can't
Yeah, absolutely.
we? Over many years.
Yes. One little strategy that I often use in my own reading is to think about these things as I'm reading. As I read, I'm thinking mindfully about, I'm doing that. I'm not doing that. So that I'm building on what I am doing, but noticing what I'm not doing. And so when I notice what I'm not doing, I find a whole lot of next steps for myself. And I don't put myself under pressure going, I have to get all of those things done, but I can choose, right, what is my next step that I can easily bring in that I'm currently not doing. So that what am I doing? What am I not doing? And from those not doing, I've got next steps. But just choosing, okay, what's my next tomorrow step? Yeah.
Now, going on to key question 2,
Yes.
what's a good tool that you've used with teachers in classrooms? Well, we could just talk about the articles like this, really.
Yes.
You know, from the FFLL site is a really good tool to use.
Yes.
that was our focus today. Really.
Yes. Yeah. That's a over this, particularly this year, we've been bringing more and more of these articles to teachers that we're working with or leaders. So the writing article about the writing process with our Be Inspired teachers and leaders this year, we're using that as like the touchstone text that we're using, that we keep coming back to. So great to be able to find articles that we can engage with and not just use once for ourselves or with or with groups, but to use them again and again, so that if I'm reading it in a way like, what am I doing? What am I not doing? So, if I've got that list of, all these things that I'm not doing, but just step by step, how could they be incorporated into what I'm doing, means that those texts can be ongoing. I tend to sit with professional readings for a while. I like to, before I move on to too many more things, I like to get what I can from that and move that along before I'm, switching to something else or...
And that must deepen your comprehension.
I'm sure it does. It's where and it's how I encourage students to be with their reading, that for our younger readers, we want them to reread. Because in rereading, we are orchestrating more and more strategies each time.
And could it be that we're letting the text sit upon our mind?
Yes.
In a read aloud, we let the text sit upon
language sit upon our ear.
With this deeper looking at the way you're comprehending, you're letting the text sit upon your mind longer than usual.
Who of the US presidents only had a small collection of books that they read and reread?
Abraham Lincoln. He had 4 books because there was very limited books in their public library, but there were 4 he just read over and over again, and that's how he taught himself to read.
But it wasn't just about teaching himself to read.
No.
It was teaching himself
to comprehend,
to think about things.
Yes, and what an amazing thinker he was.
Yeah.
Only with 4 texts.
Yeah.
Okay.
So we're not saying do a text to death. We're just saying what is the text bringing to us that we can, I suppose where it does connect again to is just about focusing.
Yeah. And in our internet world, we are losing a bit of that focus.
Yes.
Now, key question 3, what's a tantalising text that you've been using recently, Sharon?
Well, actually I used it yesterday to share with Mount Barker staff, but one of my recent reads has been The Hippo at the End of the Hall by Helen Cooper. So it's it would be for maybe our 8 to 10, 11-year-olds or younger as a read aloud. Definitely, that year 3, 4, 5 kind of space. Just a tremendous story of you can already The Hippo at the End of the Hall. It's somewhat fantastical because we have creatures that can speak and come alive. So chapter book, lot of chapters, great chapter headings, lots of ink sketches throughout the book. So Helen Cooper is a UK-based author and illustrator who's written a lot of picture books and written and illustrated a lot of picture books. This is her first novel, children's novel, and I was captivated by the story, completely captivated by it. Its messages, wonderful messages for children, around their confidence and but this story of really our main character here is on a bit of a hero's quest, and they have to overcome some pretty big obstacles. So I highly, highly recommend, and I love that yesterday, once you bring books to people. So yesterday I shared that as part of one of my mini lessons that I was doing, and afterwards so many people came up and said, I just want to look inside that book. I want to look at it more. So book recommendations, it's one of the ways we get to choose books. So it's one that people might be intrigued enough to explore and go looking for. I also love Helen Cooper talks at the end of the book about what she uses, like what prompted her to write the book and how she went about it. So I think that's the other thing that I always enjoy about books is when authors let us and illustrators let us give us some insights into their reading and writing, into their writing processes. And it was actually being in the museum in Boston where she looked down a corridor and saw a hippo at the end of the hall. And as she sat there sketching it, she felt this story coming together about why catching the glimpse of a hippo at the end of the hall, like what would that story be? So, this is about bringing the writer's life to students and a reader's life.
And I must say those times where we've invited a writer to come into a school to talk to the students about their writer's life has been fantastic.
Yes,
and we've had some wonderful writers on our podcasts.
Yes.
Really go back, folks, and listen to some of those.
And more to come.
More to come, yeah.
All right. Phil, we must wrap up really. We have a date with our adult children doing the brainwaves.
Yes, from the paper.
From the newspaper.
Yep.
Love doing the brainwave, especially when they ask us what's the meaning of a word.
Yes.
We don't.
Or who's the captain of a football team? We got no idea because we're not sports people. Anyway, thank you for joining us, everyone, today. And it's been really lovely coming back to you with Series 2. And we've got some really exciting people coming up on our podcast, as well as Sharon.
As well as us.
And please stay in touch through all those ways that you do, through our Q Learning website, through Teachific, the resources, and through our Facebook group. Thank you, everyone, for being with us today. Thank you, Sharon, for your insights and your bits of gold.
Oh, pleasure. Absolute pleasure. As we know, I'll talk for hours.
All right, thanks, everyone. And bye for now.
Bye, everybody.
Thanks for listening to the podcast. To make sure you don't miss any literacy learning tips and insights, please subscribe to our show on your favourite podcast player. At Q Learning, our literacy specialists draw on over 30 years of teaching and international consulting experience to deliver world-class learning solutions. We equip, empower and support teachers to become their authentic selves. To find out about upcoming webinars and about how Q can help you and your school, visit qlearning.com.au. And you can get even more amazing teaching resources right now at teachific.com.au. Stay tuned.